Alright, so throughout the year, we have been asked to look at a series of texts of our choice to read and analyze. The first book I chose was On the Road by Jack Kerouac, an American writer and poet. When searching to find a theme that came up a lot through the text, I stumbled upon drug and alcohol abuse. This was a relevant theme to the book, as Sal Paradise, also known as Jack Kerouac, spent a lot of time traveling the US, hitchhiking and conversing with his buddies, doing different drugs, and getting some alcohol when they had the money to spend. Now, this was an interesting theme at first. I did lots of research. I came across all these articles and findings relating to the problems that drug and alcohol abuse causes. But then, at this point, I watched the movie Limitless, and it completely changed my topic. Now, I had no intention of Limitless being my multimedia text, but it related to drugs, and it also related to the theme of creativity. See, now I was more interested in the theme of creativity than drug and alcohol abuse. So, what is creativity? See, that's kind of a hard question to answer, as most likely everybody in the class has a different perception of what creativity is. For me, I define creativity as something that we all have. It involves thinking or behaving imaginatively with a purpose to generate something original with value. In the article Development of Imagination, creativity can also be defined as the process of producing something that is both original and worthwhile, or characterized by originality, expressiveness, and imagination. Imagination and originality are the two key words in this definition, and probably for all the definitions of creativity around the world. So, imagination is something that we see more in children, isn't it? Not likely do we come across someone saying, "Oh wow, that grown man has a wild imagination." I don't think I've ever actually heard anybody say that, to be honest. Usually, when wild and imagination come up in the same sentence, it is when somebody's talking about a child who is imagining all these ideas and abstract images in their head, trying to explain to an adult or his parents. Now, don't get me wrong, there are many creative adults in the world, and most of them have been successful in their life, such as Tim Burton, Lewis Carroll, Ronnie Mullen, and John Lennon. I feel as today's society is losing creativity, and we are becoming more and more plain. We need more creative minds in the world, and that all starts from when you're a child. I wanted to know what affects one's creativity, and how is creativity being lost through generations. Through these inquiries and research, I came up with an answer. The current generation of today's society lacks creativity due to the exponential increase of technology and the way we are taught to learn through the education system. Technology. Think about how much technology has changed in the past 40 years. Laptops, internet, smartphones, GPS, all of these incredible inventions. They let us do stuff that we didn't think were possible, let's say 30, 40 years ago. Now, every year, we have a new technological advance. Let it be the iPhone 5, iPad 3, high-speed internet. There's always room for growth, for more improvement. But is this really a good thing? The youth of today are more targeted by technology than older groups. This is because marketers find it easier to sell to kids than adults, as they always get what they want, and teenagers always want to keep up with the latest trends. 72% of iTunes' top-selling education apps are designed for preschoolers and elementary school children. Now this worries me, as when I was in preschool and elementary, I was playing with Legos. I was starting to learn how to socialize with people and make friends. See, I'm not the only one who has experienced how addictive technology can be. And with kids now starting from an early age, I don't think it's a good plan for the future. In an article about technology sapping away children's creativity, Nancy Carlson Page talks about how children learn at a young age. Kids need first-hand engagement. They need to manipulate objects physically, engage all their senses, and move and interact with the three-dimensional world. This is what maximizes their learning and brain development. A lot of the time children spend with screens takes time away from the activities we know they need for optimal growth. We know that children today are playing less than kids played in the past. This shows that children need hands-on experience with objects to learn and develop fully, But with the use of technology, they are losing these chances of development. Many researchers have tracked children's creativity for the past 50 years and are starting to see a significant decrease for the first time. This is related to the lack of children playing, compared to the amount of children playing on technological devices. Playing fosters imagination, original thinking, problem solving, and critical thinking. There are those two key words again, originality and imagination. These two words define creativity. As children invent their own scenarios in games that they make up and play with friends, they face new challenges and have to overcome them on their own. This gives them a gain of confidence, a sense of mastery. This also applies to materials and objects children play with. When children build and create objects, they are building a base understanding of concepts and skills that are vital for growing up in the everyday world. When faced with technology, children don't have the chance to have all these interactions with real objects, with real people. They aren't encouraged to ask questions or think outside the box. They're just following what the program is telling them to do. So children are greatly affected by these technological advances and the internet and devices. But what about people from ages 15 and older? I know I am greatly influenced by technology, and most of you are probably too. But how is technology really affecting us? In this video I'm about to show you, Nicholas Carr, author of The Shallows, What the Internet is Doing to Our Brains, talks about the effects the internet has on us.
Inspired me to think about how the technologies we use in our day-to-day lives, like the net, can influence actually the way that we think.
So you went to look at the research on neuroscience, and a lot of the book takes us through that. What was the key thing you found in terms of the impact of the internet? One thing you talk about is this idea called plasticity.
Right. And I mean, one of the curious things about my own experience was that the time I spent online seemed to be influencing the way I think, even when I wasn't in front of a computer, when I was sitting down and trying to read or trying to concentrate. And what I found is the recent discoveries about what brain scientists call neuroplasticity really helped kind of unravel that conundrum. Because what brain scientists have discovered over the last couple of decades is that even as adults, our brains are very malleable, very plastic, and they're constantly adapting down at the cellular level to what we use our minds for, to our environment, and so forth. And so what we can, I think, theorize is that as we train our brains to take in information very, very quickly, in a very interrupted, distracted way, little bits of it coming at us all the time, the way we experience it online, that strengthens those parts of our brain that are good at multitasking and good at shifting our focus very, very quickly. On the other hand, we're not exercising those parts of our brain that are involved in deep concentration, deep attentiveness, things like contemplation and reflection. And so what happens in the brain is that, what we use gets stronger, the actual cellular connections, and what we don't use weakens.
And so what are we losing in terms of our thinking process, our ability to think more deeply?
What we're losing is the ability to pay deep attention to one thing over a prolonged period of time. So it can be, a long book, it can be listening to or engaging in a long conversation without checking your iPhone or your BlackBerry all the time. Any kind of thought process that requires focus on one thing is what is being disrupted. And unfortunately, another thing brain science tells us is that the process of paying attention, paying deep attention, activates a lot of our deepest thought processes, our long-term memory, the building of conceptual knowledge, critical thinking. All of those things hinge on our ability to pay attention.
Is it also possible, though, that the gadgets that are connecting us to the internet are themselves evolving, perhaps in ways that might help us in the future? I've seen some suggestions, for example, that the iPad people are spending more time on a particular application rather than flitting around as you worry. So is there a chance that gadgets will perhaps help us?
I think it would be nice to think that these will evolve in a way that return us to our attention span, but unfortunately I think the way they're going to evolve is the way that the net has evolved up until now, which is pushing even more distractions and interruptions on us pretty much all day long.
Nicholas Carr is the author of The Shallows. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Jeff.
And I'm Jeffrey Brown.
Alright, so from this video, we can see that 1, the internet isn't always a bad thing, but the way that it's heading is going to affect our society, and 2, our concentration is declining from the use of the internet. Through this lack of concentration, we are destroying certain brain functions that we have. Without concentration, how are we ever going to come up with original ideas, imaginative thoughts, without losing these ideas in our heads and starting to think about something new, rather than expanding on this original idea and turning it into something new and creative? Now, another problem is the lack of creativity development in our schools. The school system has been the same for a while now and needs to change. Kids go into schools learning about math, sciences, and the arts at an early age. Like I talked about before, kids learn and develop the most, spark creativity, and learn life lessons at a young age. Some people are just good at math, and some people aren't. Some people are good at music, and some people can't play an instrument for their life. In elementary schools, they do a good job of helping children find what they like to do and what they're naturally good at. When making the transition to high school, that's when everything changes. It starts being about, this is the way we're going to teach you, and this is the way you're going to do it, rather than learning the way that the child needs to learn in his own way. There are different types of learning. Visual, where writing down stuff is easier and seeing graphics helps one learn more. Auditory, where saying the information is more valuable, asking questions and having discussion is easier for kids to learn. And kinesthetic, where demonstrating or being involved in physical activities helps one learn and develop more. In our current school system, we are more interested in the visual aspect of learning, in the writing down of information. This may be great for some students, but others can't even grasp this way of learning. So I want to talk about this boy, Jacob Barnett. He was born with Asperger's syndrome. Experts and doctors said Jacob would never be able to read or write. When he was put into school, they put him into a special education class because he couldn't learn like the other children of the school. Now, just because Jacob couldn't learn in the way that other children did, didn't mean he couldn't learn on his own. He started to look into mathematics and physics on his own time, and before his parents knew it, he had flourished into a child genius with an IQ of 189, higher than Albert Einstein. When finding a passion that he could understand and liked, Jacob started to learn in his own way and is now a child genius. If his parents listened to the doctors in the first place and kept him in school, it would have destroyed his potential, as he needed to develop and find his own way to learn rather than doing it the way that the school system wanted him to. Now in this case, it's special because Jacob is a prodigy and not everybody can learn calculus in 2 weeks. Okay, so relating back to creativity, if Jacob was taught to learn the way that the school system intended, he wouldn't have been able to release his full potential, to learn in his own imaginative way to do the things he does, and understands the concepts that he was reading about. So the school system is killing creativity. It is doing this by teaching us that mistakes are the worst thing that you can do. It is teaching us that being wrong is a bad thing. It is teaching us that there is only one way to learn, and that's their way. If you are not prepared to be wrong, you will never be able to come up with something original. This is a quote from Sir Ken Robinson, an English author, and I believe it to be completely true. This goes against the school system because, like I said, they want you to always be right, to pass the first time without failing. But failing doesn't always result in failure at the end of your life. There are many successful people such as Quentin Tarantino, Elton John, and Louis Armstrong who didn't graduate high school. Look at them now. They are role models and happy with their life. They took a different approach in learning in what they loved, and it taught them to be creative individuals who have generated original content for the world to love. Throughout this talk, hopefully you've learned something about technology and our education system, that it is cutting off creativity of our society and future generations. If you're going to pull anything from this talk, I would like it to be that we all have potential to be creative and come up with something original and worthwhile, but it's in your hands to do something about it. Thank you.